to Making the Brand, the podcast where marketing and pop culture collide. I'm your host, Brianne Fleming. I can't wait to chat about brands, boy bands, and everything in between. Because brands who have a pulse on pop culture can create adoring fans of their own. Welcome back to the Making the Brand podcast. Today, I am joined by my good friend, someone I talk to every day, but I actually have not met in real life. But we're going to change that at some point when it's safe to meet up. My friend, Britt Hyatt. She is a web designer, boy band fangirl, just like I am. We've had a lot to bond over, and she's going to blow your mind today as we talk about websites. So thanks for being here, Britt. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, Brianne. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We host our own little mini, I don't want to call it a podcast. It's a live stream. So we've done that together, but we haven't done a podcast episode together. So this is a big
I know. I don't know how to talk about anything other than Backstreet Boys.
That's fine. You're in the right place.
We'll in the right place.
You're in good company. So speaking of that, I want to hear more about your background. I mean, like I mentioned, you and I talk every day, but introduce yourself to the Making the Brand listeners out there.
Yeah. So I am Britt Hyatt. I am a website designer of, 16 years. I'm aging myself. 16, 17 years or so. I co-own a business called Launch Your Daydream, where we do brand and website design for photographers. So that's kind of my day-to-day work perspective. And outside of that, I do consulting just from a website strategy, design, brand strategy, all that good stuff, SEO, all that kind of geeky stuff that nobody really wants to touch. I love it. And it's just what I do. So I do that over at britthyatt.com. But yeah, I actually started as an entrepreneur about 5 years ago, and 6 years ago, started as a website design studio. And then Kelsey and I actually decided to go into business together before we actually met. So sounds like a common thing. But yeah, it's been a really fun journey figuring out how to get from climbing the corporate ladder to just identifying myself as an entrepreneur and figuring out like what the heck that even means. And it's been really, really exciting.
Well, good for you for taking that leap, because I've done it before and I did go through that same phase where it just felt like an identity crisis the whole time.
Yes, absolutely. And it's still, even 5-6 years later, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And it's such a good way. Like I tell people things and I'm like, I can't believe that just came out of my mouth. And you know, like even just this last weekend, I went to purchase my car at the car dealership and they said to me, "Oh, you're the president of your own company?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am actually." Like that's pretty cool. So it was just really exciting. Like even something small like that, you know, I said, you know what, I was tired of climbing the corporate ladder and never seeing my family and just kind of being stuck. And, you know, you're stuck at a certain salary and you're stuck at specific job scope and things like that. And I was like, I am tired of somebody else signing my paycheck and telling me how much I deserve to get paid. So it was
a definite ceiling there.
Exactly. Sure. So I'm like, we're just going to go ahead and take the leap and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I'm going to link to your website, to Launch Your Daydream, to all the things in the show notes, because your and Kelsey's work that you guys do for photographers, your web design work and branding work is just some of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
Truly, like the way you capture the essence of these photographers' personalities. Like your clients are all photographers, but each design you make is so unique. And I just feel like that's such a huge accomplishment that you're designing for the same industry and pretty much the same type of person, but you're able to really incorporate their personalities and just wow me and them every single time you create.
Well, thank you. So. Yeah. I mean, we definitely, a lot of our design work is, all of our design work is rooted in strategy, and we do a lot of just kind of foundational brand work with our clients from the get-go. And We never use like, even like as crazy as it sounds, we never use the same fonts with any client. We never use the same website design for any client or anything like that. And if I, even as I'm designing, if I start to get the feeling of like, wait, have I done this before? Even if I feel like that, and the client would never ever see that website where where maybe it was a little bit similar to me, I'm like, no, that's not good enough. This person has invested with us and their time with us. Like they need to have something that is truly unique to them. So yeah, we definitely hone in on their unique personality and their unique business and all of those things to just get something that is really custom to them. And it's exciting to do, because a lot of people say it's like their personality is just like brought to life now in their business too, which is really exciting for them.
Absolutely. I feel like between personal brands or corporate brands, no matter what it is, whoever you're designing a website for, that foundational research and really getting to know the person is often overlooked. Like people usually just jump right into it. It's like, that's how you get a carbon copy of what everyone else is doing. So I'm so happy to hear that you do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we know that they can choose any designer that they want on the internet. Like it's endless of like who they can choose, or templates or anything like that. And we're like, we're not doing them justice. If they choose to invest in us, there's reasons that they're going to do that. And we need to give them a reason to celebrate when everything's done.
Well, it's easy to see why you're a president of your own company.
Well, thanks.
Outlook like that, it's so refreshing to hear. But actually, I want to put you on the spot for a second.
Okay.
I just thought of this and ask you a pretty controversial question about web design.
Yeah.
What comes first, content or design?
Oh gosh. It depends on the day. No, so I'm gonna actually take the middle road with that a little bit, not to find the gray area where there doesn't need to be gray area, but I would say we start with a content structure first. So even before we kind of get into the nitty gritty details, we follow a structure from a website design perspective that really helps the client to be able to craft that copy. Or if they're working with a copywriter, the copywriter usually knows, all of those things as well. But we actually start with the structure of the copy first to make sure that they're uniquely and really hitting home on the value of their services. So we start with a structure, and that's what I start the design with. And then I go in and say, okay, let me take a look at all the details that they've given us. And we actually gather those details from a questionnaire that we send them up front. They don't even know that they're building website copy until they actually see the design. So it's like really exciting, because we're like, hey, look what you did. Like, this is really cool. So it's so fun to be able to take it, and they answer these questions, and then we kind of morph it into this website design with the copy that they did. And they had, because asking before we did this kind of structure, asking somebody for website copy, I mean, you would wait for months. You
overthink it then.
Yes. And I get it. Like, putting my own website copy together is like, it's really hard to do. Imposter syndrome sets in 10,000% of the time. So we knew that like, that wasn't the answer. We had to find some sort of middle ground where we could help them with it and guide them, but they don't know that they're doing it. And so we just kind of morph it into a website design, and they're like, oh my gosh, this has my business all over it. We're like, yeah, because you told us, like, surprise. So yeah, brilliant. I would say, to answer that, like, we like the structure first.
Okay.
And then I design, and then I fill in all the details and kind of finesse the design a little bit.
Yeah, that's just brilliant. And you're able to not only to get them to write copy, but to write it in a way that suits their voice. Like, there's no pressure to like, oh, this is going to be on your homepage. What do you want to say? Right. Go. Just let them express, let them get it all out, let them get it on paper. And there you go. Look at these gems.
Well, and I think it's a confidence booster for them too, because sometimes people see, if they own their own business, right? It's I do these things, and it's like, yeah, but what value are you bringing to them? Well, I do this for them. We're like, yeah, but what else? But what else? But what else? And we literally ask them at some point in the questionnaire, like, how is your client's life going to change from before they work with you to after they work with you? And it sounds so dramatic, but it's true. You're solving a problem for them. Like, they're with you for a reason, right? So I think it's just a mindset change, and it's definitely shown us and shown the clients like the actual value of their services in a way that they haven't necessarily seen that before.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, we talk a lot about brand purpose and how important it is for these corporations to have these missions and purposes and values and ethos and all of those things. But even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, if you're just running your own business or building your personal brand, you still have a purpose with the content you create and the things that you do. So I love that you shine a light on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really fun to see, like, people will be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this was even like in me. And then they see the website and they're like, oh my gosh, like that's it. Like, that's it. They're like, you did that. You should be proud of yourself.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's really exciting to just kind of watch their mindset change throughout the process.
Well, we're just getting started on all the web design and fun little words of wisdom you're going to share with us today. We're going to kick it off and just talk about the importance of websites, but we're going to shift, as you know, a little bit and talk about how musicians do it. More specifically, some of our favorite musicians, maybe the Backstreet Boys will come up, of course.
We can't not mention them. Come on.
No, they're going to be in here. So we'll get on that. But before we dig into specific examples of musicians and artists who really leverage the power of their I guess they're not really personal websites in these cases, but maybe, I mean, as artists and as brands and businesses that these artists really are, they're using their websites in a really powerful way. So what would be some of the reasons that an individual or an artist should build their website? What are the benefits of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a big part of it, just to kind of, I don't know, just to kind of start from square one, is it looks legit. Like, I don't know if that's like, like I feel like, if they're presenting themselves in, like to a certain investor or to anybody that, that truly wants them to succeed, having something like that is really, really important. Right. And again, it might just be me being old school about it, but I just feel like there's something to say if you go to a domain name.com and your information pops up and it presents itself in a way that like their unique voice can stand out, their unique brand visuals can stand out, all of those things, like they can control the content that their fans see on their website. It's not something that goes away quickly, like a Instagram story or anything like that. In fact, I don't even think that social is like comparable to a website from that. It's not apples to apples, right? So, so yeah, I think just the fact that it looks legit, right? It looks like you're taking things seriously. And it's just your online home, like you own it. If Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever were to just be wiped away tomorrow, all of your followers go along with it. So it's just nice to have that like secure online home, right? That like you can control what information is on it. And yeah, I think that's kind of a couple different points, but I also think from a musician's perspective or an artist or, anybody from that kind of industry perspective, you can set up products, you can set up services, you could set up whatever that looks like, for that specific artist. Like you have control of what that is and how that functions and all of those things, which for social media, I just think it can get very loud very quickly. Right. So having that one central spot that they know that they can go, their fans can go to order a sweatshirt or, or look at their tour dates or anything like that. It just gives that its own special place that is just for them. And, and just, I feel like it just gives more of an opportunity for their fans to be able to engage and have a spot that they can feel valued as well.
Right. Yeah. And it's not just these famous musicians and artists. I mean, that can benefit really anyone because I think a lot of times we use social media kind of as our crutch to say, oh, we do have an online presence, but it's really not enough.
Right. Exactly. I think, it just gets so loud sometimes on social media. And that's not to say like you shouldn't have social media. Like that's like actually the complete opposite. I think it's smart to have those things, but I also think it's in addition to. right? So you can say certain things on social media, but then bring them back to the full story on
Yeah.
your website. And like I said, I just think there's so much value that can be in a website that can still um, that your fans can come back to and interact with. And, like you said, Brian, I think not even just from a musician or an artist perspective, but for an individual person to have that place that they can just sound off and give their thoughts and bring people to all of that information versus just throwing it all at social media and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And you also brought up products, which I think is really interesting because even as an individual, you might not think that products are in your future or that this website that you're building and these posts that you're writing could actually materialize into anything, really profitable or that it's going to turn into this business. But it really could if you start creating that traffic and you'll hear from your audience, you'll get these light bulb moments. Maybe you want to sell an ebook or some type of download or for me, I never thought I was going to have pop chat merchandise for my Twitter chat,
Right.
but I had the foundation in place. And I think we see a lot
Exactly.
of writers and creators, they think, oh, I'll just have an Etsy store or I'll just write on Medium. But if you create only in those environments, you're not really setting yourself up for the long term.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with you. I think there's that mindset shift that happens
Yeah.
from that perspective too. I think it sometimes takes a little while for some people to just kind of be able to find their footing a little bit of like, well, what can I offer to people, or what do I want to offer to people, right? And so, yeah, I think being able to start somewhere and have that website established, and then allow it to grow. Like your website should continue to grow with yourself, your business, your brand, whatever that means to you. It should continue to grow with it. There should be a reason people want to come back to your
Right.
website.
Right.
So I think just setting it up from that perspective is really, really smart. Because imagine if you didn't have a website and all of a sudden you were like, I want Pop Chat merch. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, shoot, now I gotta make a whole website to go along with it. Like you
Oh,
have that, and
way more.
and I think just having that as a solid foundation is really, really a smart thing to do.
Yeah. Well, we're going to look at some musicians who do this well.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your website should evolve with you. And I think someone who definitely does this really well is Taylor Swift because her music
Yes.
evolves with her, different albums or different stages of her life. And her website goes through this evolution as well. So, what are some things you love about Taylor's website?
Yeah. So I know that you're a huge Taylor Swift fan and you follow,
Exactly.
everything, from start to finish that she does. I like her music. I just don't follow it as closely as maybe I do for like a Backstreet Boys or, anybody like that. But when I went to her website, I was like, oh, okay. Like I felt caught up. I felt like, okay, I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
Because she's always doing something incredible, right? And so she's always releasing things. And I'm like, wait, was that this album? Was that the last one? Was that the one she released a month ago, a week ago, a day ago?
New album
Which
every
is
2 seconds.
right, which is incredible, like for her and for her fan base. And she's keeping people coming back to her website to do those things, right? So yeah, so I love that her website was up to date. I love that it, gave like individual updates, like news updates and things like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, her homepage itself just really gave some calls to action, we call them. So like getting the person who is looking at the website to actually do something.
Yeah.
There were multiple examples of that on her homepage alone, and I just really like that it was organized in a way that like you could see all of these incredible things that she's doing and engage where you feel like you want to learn more. So yeah, I really liked her website, and like I said, I like her as an artist. And when I went there, I was like, oh, okay, I don't feel like I'm missing something now.
Right. Right. You know what I wish more artists would do? I feel like we don't see this a lot, but I mean, especially this past year with the way everything has been, there's been like just lulls in touring and albums and new releases. And I wish and I feel like these artists could still be creating content on their website, even if it's just long form blog post or vlogging or other things that they could be doing. I know J Lo, she was once, I don't know, I haven't checked it in a while, but she had a really great YouTube channel that she was keeping up with. I just feel like we don't see that a lot. Like celebrities giving you a peek into their mind and just writing in a form that is different than just their songs. I wonder why that is.
You know, I keep thinking back to Taylor, from that
Yeah.
perspective, is she took advantage of this time where things have been unpredictable, things have been not as planned,
Hmm.
right? And I think it goes back to the artist to figure out like, okay, if something doesn't go as planned, look at how many tours have been canceled or postponed. And look
Hmm.
at how many just like appearances, even outside of the dates, that have been postponed or canceled. Or maybe something has been pushed off to be released because of this, that, or the other thing. I'm sure there's even plans that we aren't even aware of, right?
Yeah.
That have had to be pushed because they were strategized around all of these other things, all of these other happenings, and now that's not the case. But I think Taylor did such a great job of taking advantage of this quote unquote downtime and being like, okay, how do I really make sure my fans don't feel like I forgot them? Like, just because you're not on the road doesn't mean your fans go away. In fact, they need you now more than ever. Like, they
Right.
need you. They're struggling. They're going through all this too.
Yeah.
So I feel like now is that time where like that comfort is found in the nostalgia. It's found in um the simple things now. And the simple
Yeah.
things are listening to that music again and listening to even just them talking. Like, you see how Backstreet Boys fans lose their minds when lose their minds, including us,
Yes.
when they go live all of a
Yeah.
sudden, or when they, do these certain things. Like, they lose their minds, and it's
Yeah.
it's amazing, and it's uplifting too, right? And so I agree with you. I think that a lot of artists have gone quiet, and
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what happens to a lot of those artists when things do pick up again and all of a sudden tour dates are a thing again. Is that going to impact ticket sales? Have some of their fans moved on because they're like, well, what the heck? Like, it's been a year and a half. Where have you been?
Right. Right.
So I'm curious to see what it does for some of those artists that have been more quiet now versus some of those artists that have like fully taken it on and embraced this time as something that, hey, this is a unique thing that my fans can actually be involved in with me.
Yeah. So, moral of the story, you're saying, Nick Carter, if you're listening, we want the Twitch channel back.
We need the Twitch channel back. Any Backstreet Boy that would like to go live at any
Yeah.
point, we are just throwing this out there that we welcome it with open arms.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his Twitch channel, it was such a light during this time.
Yes.
And we just ate it up, and it was seeing him live in
Yes.
just this unedited form. And I feel like I mean, social media and going live is nothing new, but it's still so refreshing to see, especially in a group like the Backstreet Boys, who we always knew through like traditional media, to see that we have access to them live.
Yes.
And I feel like more artists could be doing that consistently with like a more formalized channel or a place on their website rather than these sort of sporadic little moments where we're getting
Yeah.
them here and there. We never know if it's coming. Our group
Right. It's always like, oh my God, drop everything.
our group chat lights up like, oh, Nick is,
Right.
he's making breakfast. Like, where was the notification on your website that this was happening, that Nick was going to make breakfast? We had to know.
Right. I mean, it's just like, it's really, like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when everything does find its new normal. Because I think right now, people are craving just some normalcy in something that is very abnormal, and it's a long-term abnormal. Like, we're tired, and we're just like, oh my God, could you imagine that first show? Can you imagine these things? And it's like, yeah, like, take advantage of it right now. Like, give your fans that reach out of like, yes, we do care. And I think, even if it's like a personal project or something that you've had in the works. I know, like, for AJ from the Backstreet Boys, his nail polish line has been in the works for what, 5 years now. And I don't know if it was planned to go live when it did, or debut when it did. I'm assuming so, but I feel like even something like that, like, people find comfort in those kinds of things. They find comfort in the fact that their artists that they love and they love listening to is providing them with something. It's giving them something to look forward to. It's keeping them engaged. just all of those things. So I feel like, if there's any musicians or artists that are just like, that have been quiet this whole time, like, speak up, get on your website, talk to your fans, get out there. And there's no reason to stay so quiet right now when your fans need you now more than ever.
Right. And they don't have to rely on just Good Morning America or, late night shows. Like, I feel like that's the only place where I'm seeing the majority of these artists that I love. Like, they are so empowered with their own channels, their own website, their own platforms.
Yes.
And when you can't show up on tour, you can just show up online. Like, it's
right. Exactly.
It's hard to do that right now.
Yeah. And I think, going back to their, to their own website, I feel like even from the Backstreet Boys perspective, they have backstreetboys.com, which needs a lot of love, to put it nicely, but it needs a lot of love, but they each have individual sites too.
Yeah.
So even if something's not happening from a group perspective, go to your individual sites and just get people excited again, because I truly think that we're, knock on wood, that we're starting to get to the other side of all of this. So if you haven't shown them love yet, you've got time. Get on your website, get things going, get people excited again, because you're going to need them when this is when this is all over. They need you now, but you're going to need them when this is all over.
Keep that momentum going.
Yes, exactly.
So you do have some other celebrities and artists that you feel like are using their website as a good tool. Who else would you mention?
Yeah, one of my absolute favorite people and musicians on the planet is Jason Mraz. He has been so good to the Cleveland area where I'm from. He's always working with like the food bank and things like that.
Oh,
so,
I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, he's so good. He's so good. And we saw him live and he's just incredible. But yes, speaking of him and his website, I was so happy to see that his website is still in good standings. I was just on it a couple months ago too, but it's also updated even during COVID. It's updated. It's on brand. It has fresh updates. Like, there's some like good need to know info on his homepage, but he also has separate pages. If you just like get a little overwhelmed by all the stuff on the homepage, you can easily just click into the navigation menu and go to the page of information that you do want to see. So it's refreshing to go there, because I'm like, hey, I need a new shirt. I could just bypass the homepage, go to the merch page and find what I needed to find, So it was refreshing to see. I was relieved when I saw his website recently, and I was like, oh, thank God he didn't change it.
Yes. And it reminds me too, I mean, to have a musician that updates their website, I feel like every headline we see about what a celebrity has done or said, it's all about what they posted on Instagram, like the Justin Timberlake apology on the Notes app. Like, come on, Justin, put a nice, post together on your website. Get a little more heartfelt. There was that whole spoof about, or that whole segment on SNL.
Yes,
about the Notes app. Like, we could do better, people. You have blogs. Like, link to something.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's something where, like, okay, if you truly mean something like that, have it stick somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, don't have it in your Notes app where everybody's just going to take screen captures. Actually have it somewhere that's going to stick.
Come on.
I know.
Could have done way better.
Yes,
but you also, there's someone else that you love, someone who's been really topical recently. So I hope his website is updated.
The Weeknd. Yes. So yeah, his homepage, when I landed on it, was a little overwhelming, but I could look past it because, he has very easy to navigation on his site. Like, his navigation menus, you very easily click into what you want to find. But in another way, like, even though his homepage did feel a little bit overwhelming when I landed there, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that he had all of these things going on. Like, some of the things I forgot that he did, or things that I just wasn't aware of in the first place. And I was like, holy cow, like, this is amazing. So yeah, I liked landing on his site and being able to, to see some of those details of, like, it's a uniquely designed website, but it's also pretty easy for his fans to navigate and engage as they need to.
Yeah. And you get so much more context that way than you would just on social media. As you mentioned, stories disappear. There's all these things going on, but It's great to have just that hub, that one
Right.
spot where they can find everything.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
I know it's interesting for you as a web designer, as a brand designer, to navigate some of your favorite artists' websites because you can do it with a critical eye. I mean, this is what you do
Yes.
for work, you know? So
Right. I'm very judgy.
yeah,
I'm very judgy when I look at websites.
you know
Where
what
everybody
good
else is
work
like, this
is.
is fine. This looks
Yeah.
fine. I'm like, does it though? They're like, yeah, it does.
But they need you. They need you. They need more people like that who are sharing their perspectives and who are ahead of the curve like this. So, what are some trends that you've noticed just as you're browsing your own, artists that you enjoy?
Yeah. So I've been on a couple of these artist websites just because I really enjoy them. But just kind of taking a look at things from, I noticed a lot of websites are just organized as like a single page. Which isn't typically recommended from an SEO perspective, but I don't think people like Harry Styles or Demi Lovato or anybody really care about SEO. I think they're good, but for anybody who may be debating themselves on whether to have a single page website or a multi-page website, SEO is much stronger for multi-page websites. So a lot of these artists had their homepage set up where it was just like a big graphic of like their latest album or their latest release of some sort. And then having like a video, like some sort of music video of sorts, and then a little spot for merch and a little spot for tour dates if they had any tour dates, which again is fine. It's a quick in and out if somebody's just going to their website to find the latest and greatest or they wanted to take quick action. But I also feel like it limits their opportunity, like to have fans engage more in their website, or kind of throwing it back. Like I don't know if you remember, Brienne, when like Backstreet Boys used to have their like street team, or like kind of like that kind of fan engagement, which is more involved.
Yeah.
Which again, it may be kind of an old school way of thinking, but I feel like a lot of fans really value that interaction more than just in social media. Like they want a little bit more and they're willing to invest a little bit more if they get kind of some of that VIP info, right? Like some of that special treatment, right? So I feel like when websites are set up in a single page format, that limits that. And that might be okay for that particular artist if they're just not looking to do anything like that. It really goes back to the goals that they have on their website or within their brand or anything like that. But yeah, a couple of the artists that I saw with that were like Harry Styles, Demi Lovato, Louis Tomlinson, Lizzo, Niall Horan, like and it seemed pretty common that I was like, wait a minute, like as I was comparing them side to side, I'm like, these are all structured very similarly. Like that's really, really interesting, especially with artists right now that are, have been trending for the last, 3-4 years straight, so it's interesting. I think it really goes back to the goals that particular artist has for their brand and has for their fans. I hope there's strategy that's going into some of that, in they don't want to do that maybe later on, given how their setup is right now.
Yeah. It's just kind of disheartening to hear because, like you said, they're leaving opportunity on the table to have this in and out experience. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how I primarily get the news about celebrities I like to follow. And it's either directly from their social or I'm reading it on, Pop Sugar or E News or TMZ occasionally. Like I'm getting it elsewhere. And I'm like, these people have the opportunity to break these stories within their own website. And as you mentioned, that opens the door. They read your announcement or whatever it might be. Oh, let me bounce over to the merch page, or let me go through and see what else is going on.
Yeah.
You don't have to rely on the mainstream media and just social, where it's harder for people in a clunkier experience for them to get to your site and potentially purchase or just engage further. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's a lot of opportunity from a blogging perspective, or from a kind of like a fan club kind of perspective. There's a lot of things that I think, I think the current kind of state of like like a fandom, right? Is the social media, is, you know, kind of these surface level kind of things, right? But I do see people like who have experienced this, you know, this from like the tour cancellations and things like that that have let them down. I almost feel like there's going to be some sort of turn of like expectations being higher when things come back. Like you lost me for 2 years, or, you know, year and a half, 2 years, however long this hiatus of touring happens, right? And now that everything's back, as much as I just want, like, I just want to see you in person and see you play a show. I've been waiting this long. I want some special treatment. I want, you know, and some people just might not be able to get to certain shows, or they might not be able to do certain things. So why not give them that treatment online? Why not give them that VIP treatment online? And so set your website up now to support that in the future.
Yeah. And it's the same thing that we encourage individuals and brands to do, is that storytelling and to, you know, tell your story more. Why aren't these artists doing that? There's so many things we are wondering about them, or behind the scenes moments, you know, old and new. I mean, there are things they can go back to and rehash and say, oh, we never told you this funny story about when we were filming the I Want It That Way music video. And, you know, I was just reminded of the memory. Let me write a quick post about it and share it with, like, we would eat that up. So.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding? I can't imagine the photos that are on some of those phones, that it's just like you share one of those photos, one of those never seen before photos. That's it. Fandom blows up. Everybody's excited again. Like, it literally takes the smallest effort, especially now, to make such a big difference. And I feel like, yeah, I'm just curious to see, you know, after everything starts to get back to normal, you know, like what that looks like from their online presence. Are they going to lean into social more? Are they going to lean into their website more? Hopefully some of the website stuff more, because it's kind of disheartening if you find a new artist like on Spotify, or somebody recommends an artist to you or something like that, and you land on their homepage and it literally just like redirects you to their Spotify, and I'm like, ew, I wanted to know more about you. You know, before I invest my time in you, in listening to you and your story and all these things, I want you to give a little bit of something back. I want to know more about this person behind this music, you know? So yeah, I feel like it's like the smallest little things, especially like you said, like a Backstreet Boy can look at their phone right now and post a never before seen photo and everybody would lose their minds. And it's little things like that.
You're right. I mean, sometimes we feel like as fans, we're so demanding and we want a lot, but we really don't. Like,
we really don't.
That could be a whole blog series, like inside Nick Carter's camera roll. And it's just like,
yeah, like there are so many opportunities just from a blogging perspective with so many of these artists, like especially these like bigger named artists that like that people know, like even if they're not a huge fan of them, they know them by name. Right. And so there's so much opportunity there to, like, especially as things start to get back to normal, to really hype up everything again and get people genuinely excited for the potential of all of the things. So yeah, I feel like there's just so much opportunity that's out there that I hope a lot of these artists take advantage of the reason that they have a website, they have this online home, they have this place that is just for them. Start updating it, get it up to date, get yourself ready. So when you are out on tour and the only updates that you're able to make are on, you know, social media, you have all this content and all these people coming into your website because you put so much work into it when things were a little bit quieter.
Right. It reminds me, I mean, AJ McLean is doing a great job with his TikTok, as you know.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
But he does these cool glimpses of his closet, which I'm sure you've seen. Like, he's a huge sneakerhead, and every time he does it, I'm like, oh my God, I want more. Like, I want to know about each of those pairs of shoes. Where have you worn them? Why did you buy them? Is it special for you for some reason? What do you wear it with? Like, that could be a whole blog series.
Oh my gosh. Like hire me to write it. Like, that dream job.
We need a tour of the closet, please.
Yes. Like little things like that. Like, I think you don't need to have an appearance, like you said, on Good Morning America to have a blog post. You don't have to have a new album release for a blog post to bring people to your website, you can literally take your phone, take some pictures and post them on the website and be like, could you imagine if that was a blog post on backstreetboys.com? So AJ takes a bunch of pictures of his shoes and like 5 different pictures and just posts where he purchased them, why he purchased them, what he wears them to, whatever that looks like, and makes a blog post and says, hey, go to backstreetboys.com and read all about it. That website would blow up. And while people are there, guess what they're going to do? They're not just going to read that blog post and leave. They're going to shop. They're going to look. They're going to see, okay, what does Backstreet Boys have going on? Oh my gosh, I didn't know that they had this shirt. I really like this shirt. Like, there's so much potential if you just get people to your website. You don't have to have a new album. You don't have to have all of these crazy announcements. Just do the smallest things and the fans will be there. They're dedicated. They'll be there.
It's so true. You don't need a big announcement or PR push or new product or new album or any of that just to update your website. Exactly. We're very easy to please. So
exactly.
So clearly, I mean, you're starting to notice these things that artists could be doing. What are some things you look for? What could be some indicators for us to know when it's time to do a full website refresh?
No, that's a good question. So I think some of them are probably obvious, right? So if you have any sort of analytics or anything on your website, some of these things are easier to tell, right? So if your website traffic is down significantly, there's probably a reason. You're probably not pushing any new content. You're not giving people a reason to go to your website in the first place. And most people, their brains are so busy these days, they're not going to just be like, I should go to that website. Like, no, you have to give them a reason to go there. So AJ, again, your sneaker push, that would get us there.
Yes.
That would get us there.
Which piece of merch the shirt will go well with.
We'll guaranteed 2 visitors. Much more than that, I know. I would say another thing is if engagement on your site is low. So we talked about a little bit about calls to action earlier, and those are basically like those things that require something from that person on the other side. So whether it's like a product purchase or whether it's a newsletter sign up or, anything that actually requires the end user to do something. If you see that has dropped off, that's usually an indicator that like something's up. Either you're not getting website traffic or they're not responding to what you're telling them to do. So that's definitely an indicator. I think a big one is content that you say is new is actually not new. So I think, unfortunately, our favorite Backstreet Boys are guilty of this. Their DNA album is right now on their website as the new album, and that was 2019, I think.
We're ready for the new one, but
we're ready. I mean, just say the word, and you can put a blog post about it. We won't be mad.
Right.
You can put it front and center on your website. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, so things, it's easy to say, I think, from a website designer perspective or from your perspective, Brianne, from like a marketing perspective, to always say something's new or something's updated or, anything like that to get people excited and motivated to go see something. But if it's not actually new or updated because you said that thing a year or 2 ago, go check it out and see if you can update that. I think another big thing is you're never referring people to your website. I think this is a big thing for our Launch Your Daydream clients, actually, is we have people who have said, the reason why I want to rebrand with you guys or the reason why I need a new website from you guys is I'm embarrassed to give people my website link. I always say, well, just email me or just scroll past this part on the website because it needs to be updated. And they're not just giving their domain to somebody, their website name, they're giving it plus an excuse for it. Yeah. And like, just to not have that excuse anymore is such a breath of fresh air. So, and I've been there myself of like, hey, I designed this like a couple years ago. So here's the link, but ignore this part on the website. Yeah. I just haven't had time to update it.
Right.
So yeah, I would say those are usually good indicators. And I think another thing is even looking into yourself. If you don't feel compelled to do anything with your website, if you don't want to update it, you don't want to bring people to your website for any reason, like you're just not feeling it, I think that's another big sign that you need like a rebrand or a website refresh in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And especially like we mentioned with social media kind of being the crutch. I mean, I feel like that's what people will lean into when they're not proud of their website. But everything you post on social media, even if you love posting on social media, all of that can be expanded on your website. You know, there's so much potential. Like there's countless content ideas just in social that you can bring to your website as well, give more context to it, interlink to other pages of your site, link to merchandise, link to other sections. Like it's really the hub where everything happens, and social should really just complement it.
Absolutely. I definitely think it allows you to like control the narrative a little bit. It lets you control that content that people see. And to your point, Brian, I think, I try to think of it as like start at one point, start at the blog, right? Give them that place where there's so much opportunity because they could do other things once they're done with the blog. Get them to your website, but then use that content, like use that content that you post to give little snippets on social media, or to, whether it's an Instagram post or whether it's a little thing on TikTok or whether it's, something on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. Give them like, it's okay to use that content in different places because spoiler alert, they're not going to look everywhere. They're probably not even going to look the first time. So that's just unfortunately reality. So when it comes, it can feel so overwhelming to be like, oh, I have to have new content for my blog and then new content for my newsletter and then new content for my Instagram and Facebook and social media in general, Twitter, all the things, where it's like, you actually don't have to. Like start at that hub, like start at your website, start at that blog post, and then let that kind of trickle out to all of those other places. So you're speaking the same language and not surprising people when they come to your website. They're going to know what to expect when they get there. Yeah. I agree with you. I think that giving them that one central spot, which is their website, because there's so much opportunity that they just wouldn't have from a social media perspective, that they're actually going to pay attention to and engage with. It's just like a different mindset when you're looking at somebody's website versus when you're looking at Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. I feel like you kind of set your brain in that expectation that, hey, I might spend a little bit more time here than I would engaging with this person on somewhere else on social.
Yeah. And on social, you're just one of many posts. Like I could be looking at a Backstreet Boys post 1 minute and then I scroll and then I'm looking at yours or Danielle's or Kelsey's. Like you're not a focused audience that way. You have to compel them off of social, bring them into sort of your sphere of your website, bring them into your world a little bit if you really want them to take that action. And if you're just posting on social media, whether you're a celebrity or not, it's a fleeting type of action.
Exactly. Exactly. So, no, I agree. I think, you can have all this content, but like you said, it gets muddied, it gets busy, it gets loud. There's algorithms that they're just going to throw at you too, because that's always fun. Like there's just so many things that are outside of your control that if there's something that you can find that's in your control, it's on your website. You know that it's there. You know it's safe there. The content is going to be there tomorrow. And people can always go back and read it. Like our number one traffic source from Launch Your Daydreams perspective is a blog post that we did in 2017. Wow. Like it gets more traffic than our homepage does. It's crazy. And so it's like, well, shoot, like imagine if I just posted the content of that on Instagram or on Facebook at the time, like all of that traffic would be gone. It would be lost. Like it would have been seen for a couple days, maybe, and then it would have been forgotten about. Right. Mm-hmm. So now we're getting people to our website from an SEO perspective because they've seen this and it sticks. And then it's also like bringing us crazy traffic for something that we took an hour to do, maybe. Like even there's some of it that I'm like, oh gosh, I want to go back and change it, but I'm like, no, it's actually working really well. So why would I change it?
Yeah. Well, that's another place where the Notes app is going to lose points because you can't search anything that's in the Notes app or any screenshot that gets published.
No.
Whereas if it's a blog post, it's live text that people can search and discover later on, but they're not really searching and finding your Instagram post. They're not landing on that. So
exactly. I just think there's so much value add from so many different perspectives of having that content safe on your website in one central place, you can control the narrative, you can control, like just so many different aspects. And then if something picks up, like this blog post or, anything else, it does the work for you. Like it brings people to your website. So why ignore that? So even from a musician's perspective who maybe like doesn't care about a ton of website traffic or a blog post going viral or, something like that, they may get consistent traffic, but if they're not getting other things, if they're not getting the product purchases, if they're not getting the engagement from their fans, if their bottom line is impacted, that's a problem. And that opportunity is within your website. So bring people to it, even if SEO isn't your first focus, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody has their own goals for their website, right? And so if SEO is not the goal for for a artist that has been popular and has had Vegas residencies and all of these things for the last 27 years, then fine, that's understandable. But I bet you want those product purchases. I bet you want people to buy your albums. I bet the second that bottom line is impacted, that's going to be a problem.
Especially now, if you're not
Especially
on tour.
Now, you're not on tour. What are you doing?
Yeah, get to writing.
Get to writing. Everybody better put their blog posts all ready tomorrow morning.
Exactly. I want a text from AJ. He does have his little text service that texts us all of his latest updates. I want links to his blog posts.
I do too. I want blog posts. I want I love the TikToks, but maybe spend some of that time on blog posts instead of TikToks.
Yeah. Just need a full closet tour.
I want something on the back. Like, why is there nothing on the Backstreet Boys website about his nail polish line? Just asking the question.
I don't know.
No answers.
Conflicts of interest. Who knows? Who knows?
It's just all of this, like, we were joking about all of this kind of, but it's all because there's so much opportunity. There's so much opportunity, right? And so as a fan, right, and as somebody within the marketing realm, you have like two different perspectives on this. You see it from a fan perspective where you're like, I want that. Like, I want these things. Then you flip it and you see it from our perspective, from like a professional perspective. And you're like, oh my gosh, why are you not doing this? We know your fans want this, right? And so we want what's best for you.
What's best for our babies.
Right. Like you're like missing out on all of this potential, right? So yeah, I think it is really interesting to think of things from this perspective of like the fan, who is the consumer, right? Because we would eat that up, right? Like the fan who is the consumer. Yeah, right. And also as the professional side of things, of like, you look at it and you say, you know what, maybe SEO isn't their goal, or maybe this isn't their goal, or surface level kind of things aren't their goal. But I bet from a business perspective, there is a goal that comes down to finances, right? Because you've been in business for this long and we know your fan base, you have this potential, take advantage of it because it's there. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Once you set it up, let it fly, like let it run, and it'll take care of business literally for you.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it was that post from 2017. Like, you invest in this once, you might have a winner. You might have a post that just continues to bring people back, and it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we see it all the time with like our Launch Your Daydream clients. We see it all the time. And again, their goals are very SEO focused. They are very much in a crowded space a lot of the time. There's a lot of photographers that are within their area that do the same kind of services that they do. So finding that unique value and setting them up for SEO properly and all of those things, those are those goals, right? So I'm sure those goals are very different than, a Nick Carter, who probably doesn't need SEO, but he I'm sure would love to see when products start to sell and his music starts to sell. Especially this like newer stuff that he's been releasing lately. Like, why would you not want that? Like, of course he wants that. Like, that's like, of course he wants that. So yeah, I do think it goes back to figuring out what the goals are for that artist, and then ask your fan base too. What do they want? Like, and how can you bring that to your website? So again, you're controlling that narrative. You're giving them a reason to purchase a specific product, or to listen to a podcast episode, or signing up for your newsletter because you know that in a couple months you're going to have something big and exciting to release. So get those people on there now, So yeah. So again, I think those goals can change for whoever it is, but oh, there's so much opportunity. I just want to hug them all and put them all in a room with masks on and just just be like, you have no idea your potential. You have no clue how much you have to work with here.
Yeah. And that's a lot. I mean, they are doing, I guess, what they can. I mean, we are still hearing about these things, but I think our main point is we're seeing it primarily just on social. And your website is your big ticket to increasing your sales and engaging with your fans and just nurturing them, increasing fan club memberships, all of those things. It's just so underutilized. So
yes, I agree. I definitely think, I hope I have some high hopes that like after the world gets back to normal a little bit, hopefully some of these things will be updated or will be refreshed or whatever that looks like for all of these artists that have maybe been quieter the last, year and a half or so. I hope they take advantage of this time because it is something that could impact them down the road. Or just to show that the genuine appreciation for the people that have stuck around when things haven't worked in their, from their perspective either. Like they were the ones that couldn't go to the show. They're the ones that couldn't, purchase something because maybe, their paycheck was impacted or whatever that looks like. Like use this time to show that appreciation for those people who have stuck around because they don't have to, right?
Right. I wanted to bring this back and just speak to anyone who may be just using social media or they're not really proud of their website or they don't really know where to start. What would be your advice just to an individual who is possibly underutilizing their website?
Yeah, I think, if they don't have a website right now, I think a lot of it is that. And you know me, Brianne. I mean, I've always identified myself as Britt from Launch Your Daydream. And up until recently, I was like, wait a minute, like how do I identify myself to somebody who isn't a photographer, right? Or like somebody who I want to do consulting with that maybe isn't a photographer or isn't like maybe a creative business owner or something like that. Like how do I identify myself as just Britt and have that be okay? So I feel like some of those practices go into figuring out like what do you want to put out there, right? Like what is something that you would like to spend time doing or updating or giving a unique perspective on, or any of those things. And I feel like identifying some of those goals up front are going to be really important, because if you have a plan going into your website, it doesn't feel like you have to do all the things all at one time. So I would say just start your website, or if you have a website today, take a look at it as, what's the purpose of this? What's the whole point here? What do I want people to do when they land on the site? Do I want them to purchase something? Do I want them to contact me for a service or for anything like that? Do I want them to just hear my voice in a little bit further than what I can type on Twitter or on Facebook or Instagram or any of those things? Like, take advantage of the fact that like if you take anything, I think, from this conversation, go buy a domain name. Like go get yourname.com if you can. And just so I've had BrittHyatt.com purchased since 2015. It took until 2021 to actually do something with it.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Well, thank you. So and that's not to say that like I always had a plan to use it in some way, shape, or form, but I always thought, oh, I have to have a business called BrittHyatt.com. And it's like, no, that's my brand. That's me. And that's okay. Like I'm a professional and I'm a consultant, or I just want a voice that's outside of what I type on Twitter or what I put on Instagram. And so whatever the future of that looks like, that looks like. But I think for right now, I would be excited to give people my website to be like, hey, look at like my history, or look at like some of the things I've done or people I've collaborated with, or just fun projects. Like I think my purpose of my website is passion projects. It's for, to give people some tech information that like I feel like is normal conversation for me, but when I tell people, they're like, wait a minute, what? And so like documenting those things so I can have that conversation, just be like, actually, hey, I'll send you a post that like actually has it in detail.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. That's a big motivator for me. But I think it's finding the purpose of your website. Like why would somebody go to your website, and thinking about it in a positive way, not in a negative, not like why would anybody go to your website, but more in a way of what do you want people to do when they're there? Do you want them to reach out to you? Because if so, great. Like, why do you want them to reach out to you? And it's always not to reference the Backstreet Boys yet again, but it's always that tell me why. Like if they're at, like, what do you want them to do? But why? But why? But why? Like, in dialing down to some of those things. And I think a Google Doc works wonders to like just brain dump everything into there, find a way to organize it. So when you go into your website, your personal brand website, or whatever this looks like to you, you have a plan going into it, and it won't feel as overwhelming.
Yeah. And use that Google Doc to work in phases.
Yes.
You don't have to launch from day one and have it all figured out.
No.
You could have this dream vision of a goal that you want to get to, but just start by making your homepage, adding a contact page, adding a blog with a couple of blog posts just to get you started, or working in a portfolio just so people can see who you are and what you're all about. And as you start creating content and establishing this website, your goals are going to become so much clearer, and you can kind of run those parallel paths to get there.
Exactly. And it gives you, like we said, that central point where like you can blog and you can do some of these things. And if you're like, well, I don't know what to post on social media, there's your content right there. Like there's some things that you can post on there that, if you want to be known as a specific type of professional, or you want to become the go-to person for this, that, or the other thing, you have a central spot for all of that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, Google Docs are my favorite to just kind of brain dump everything and then take a step back and go, okay, actually, I don't want this anymore, or I don't want this anymore. And let's organize this like this. It's just kind of the framework of the site before you jump in, because trust me, I mean, even as a website designer, if somebody gives me their website copy and their images and like all these things, if I don't have goals defined by that person, which is luckily something we do up front, but if I don't have any strategy going into it, it takes me probably 4 or 5 times longer to actually create the site. And I'm not convinced in the site myself. Like even as a designer, I'm like, oh, like it looks fine and there's stuff there, but I don't know what the goal is. Like obviously for photographers, I'm pretty familiar with the audience to know probably what some of their goals are, but everybody's business is so unique and everybody's personal brand is so unique that you have to define some of those things up front.
Right. Well, this has been a lot to think about. I'm going through my own website in my head right now. Like,
wait a minute,
what's the goal? But this has been so helpful. Thank you so much for both fangirling, but also geeking out with me today. Just 2 things we do best, right?
I could do this all day long.
Stay tuned. Maybe we'll do a part 2. There's just
yes.
to talk about. Or people can tune into our live stream, Fangirls Night Out, coming back for season 2 very soon.
Yay. I'm so excited with Danielle and Kelsey, who are our counterparts with all of this. And absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's so fun.
Love them so fun. Well, thank you again for hanging out with me today. And where can people find you online? I know we talked about your website, BrittHyatt.com. What about on social? Anywhere else?
Yeah, social. I am Boy Brand Britt on Twitter. And yeah, Launch Your Daydream is our branded website for design services for photographers. You can find it there. But yeah, reach out to me, BrittHyatt.com. And you can fill out my contact form and email, and I'll answer any questions for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Britt. Until the day we meet in person, we'll just keep doing these conversations and streams. But I know we're going to meet in Vegas one day for
oh my gosh,
a residency of some sort, whether it's
Twist
Usher
my arm. Twist
or
my
the
arm.
Backstreet Boys. We'll figure it out. So
well, somebody just go to Vegas. I think Usher's there or will be there. Yeah, Backstreet Boys. You set a date, and Brienne and I will be there.
Yes, sounds good. Take our money.
All of it. All of it.
Thanks, Britt.
Thanks, Brienne.
If you're a fan of this podcast, be sure to subscribe, or better yet, leave a review. You can also join my Twitter chat at #PopChat for weekly pop culture discussions you can actually learn from. If you have an idea for an episode, shoot me a DM at Brienne2K. As always, thanks for listening.